We got this from the Post Millennial. Faculty, students, and alum at University of Washington rally in support of Hamas terror group. Yo, check this video out. Greg Price has it. I'm going to play this for you. You ready? Here we go. So let me just break it down for you. They're saying there is no peace on stolen land, and there is only one solution: intifada revolution. So I want to make sure the full context is there, but everybody understands the reference to there is only one solution, right? They're chanting that on purpose.
That was Hitler,
they don't,
man.
Yeah, they don't need to say that to So when these leftists come out and they're saying things like, they go, it's an open air prison, and these people just want to peacefully return to their homes. I'm like, no, they don't. They're screaming from the river to the sea. Yeah, they want to destroy Israel.
Define peace, because I don't think that word really means what you think it means when you say that.
Yeah, if you obliterate the surface of Earth, it will be peaceful after that. But that's not the kind of peace I'm looking for.
Interesting idea. Maybe that's how we bring about world peace.
Through a great reset? Through fire and cataclysm?
Fire and cataclysm.
Where was that?
That was, I think, University of Washington.
There's just something so interesting about it happening to sheltered Americans protesting something that's happening, as far as they're concerned, a world away. And I really do think that the internet, I don't think human beings were really ever designed or created to really handle what the internet can provide for them in this respect, meaning that you lose an insane amount of perspective to what's going on when you take that vociferously to something that you can't even experience firsthand or even would ever want to experience firsthand.
That's as it was, the video was playing. Serge, I saw you shaking your head. You look pissed. Was it like, were you just picturing what these people would be experiencing if Hamas was to take over as their government? Like, what was going through your head when you heard them screaming that?
It's just sickening to see people that are living this first world lifestyle, going to university, getting everything paid for in a lot of cases, and chanting for the death of the people across an ocean when they have nothing to do with the conflict. They don't understand the roots of the conflict. They don't understand anything else. They just know this is a current thing, and the current thing I have to spend on this side. And you know what? I'm free today. I'm going to go rally for whatever because I want to make sure that I get cool social points. It's sickening to me.
You have this other video. Let me play this one for you.
Allowed! They want our people dead! They want us killed!
How is it allowed, she asks. The tweet says, Jewish students at UW campus witnessing the pro-Palestinian rally break down. They want us dead. How are you allowing this? I will only say, young woman, wipe your tears. They're allowed to speak. And I'm glad they're speaking, and you should be happy they're saying these things. Because now you know who they are and who to avoid. Yeah. Imagine if there are people who are trying to kill you in secret. I'll put it this way. If there's someone's gunning for you, they want to take your life, and they're lurking in the shadows, and you never even knew it was coming. Yeah, that's horrible. But what if you got advanced warning? You go to the cops, right? You can say, like, hey, like, someone's coming after me. That's the point of free speech. So we get to watch a video where they chant that. I think it's fair to say I'm not taking their word for it when they're saying things like no peace on stolen land. There was a Yale professor who said settlers are not civilians, and they're chanting there is only one solution. Like, bro, the left lies. It's what they do. They say we're just defending ourselves as they throw bricks and fire bombs at people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how many times can you fall for it, first of all, but also kind of what you were saying about the whole idea of protesting, even if it's peacefully about something a sea away, is particularly, I think it's harmful on a level that they don't understand, obviously, because they're removed from it, but also you're influencing what that country kind of does in a way. The same way we were talking about COVID with all the, and in the middle of that, all the George Floyd stuff. It's like, why is London protesting someone that was killed on our land? Why is the UK and Paris, like, why? And it's you don't understand what's going on. And that's one of the things that's uncomfortable on days like this, where obviously, our job to talk about politics, but it's hard to really say what we want to happen or what should happen. And then it's also even harder because they're so comfortable saying what they want to happen. Yeah. You kind of feel like you have to, but we don't understand it here fully like that.
Well, the funny thing is when George Floyd happens, you get all the conservatives being like, okay, like this was bad, we agree, and the left being like, see, we told you, Black Lives Matter. Then the video comes out where it shows you a bit more nuanced take on what happened with the George Floyd incident. And you still have conservatives being like, we've had conservatives come on the show and be like, yeah, okay, we saw the footage, but we still think it was bad what happened. And now you look at this. Now you look at what happened in Israel, and you have the reasonable approach of, we don't like it when civilians are killed. Yes, Gaza is it's a horrible situation. We're trying to resolve this. What can we do? And then you have the left cheering for the violence, cheering for the killing of civilians, calling for more, chanting in the streets, there's only one solution. Like, dude, just stop believing them. They're lying to you.
They go straight to it. Oh my God.
And they're gonna come out now and be like, "No, that's not what we mean." I was like, I don't even want to hear it, dude. Like, there's a really funny video Andy No tweeted where a guy claims that when you go to what does he say? When you go to a leftist rally or whatever, there's Palestinian flags. When you go to a white supremacist rally, it's Israeli flags. And then he claims that they only chant free Palestine. Meanwhile, people on the right chant death to Arabs, which literally is not a chant and does not occur or appear in any of the rallies held by people on the right.
Yeah,
which
I'm
is
racking
insane.
my brain. I'm like, when was that?
Oh yeah, I saw that video.
Right.
Yeah.
They just lie. They're making things up,
Right.
and they want to kill people.
And one of the twisted things about leftist rallies and protests and all the things that are actually not protests because they're violent, having lived in LA during all of COVID, is that you realize they're actually kind of parties. Like, they'll be doing this crazy rhetoric and this groupthink, but the 90% of people who show up are because their friends are there and they're showing up. Whereas even the most intense right-wing rallies, which again, I'm racking my brain to think of really like the worst ones, people are there at least intentionally.
Yeah.
And at least they've had like a minute of thought about what they're saying and how the impact it may have. Whereas these people show up and they're like, oh, Rebecca's over here and she's talking about no peace until whatever. It's like, that doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah. Look at this story. This is from the Post Millennial. They go on. When reached for comment about the rally for terrorists, UW spokesperson Victor Balta told the Post Millennial on behalf of UW President Anna Koss, as a public institution that abides by the First Amendment, the UW neither monitors nor takes any action against individuals or student organizations for engaging in protected speech. However, Koss has a track record of attempting to prevent speech. In 2019, the UW College Republicans held a bake sale to demonstrate racism from affirmative action by charging different prices based on ethnicity and gender. In response, Koss released a statement condemning the event, and despite claiming the university needed reason to debate on affirmative action, added the so-called affirmative action bake sale that the UW College Republicans are hosting today has no place in such a debate. She also said the event humiliates and dehumanizes others. It's really interesting. Look, this Yale professor said settlers are not civilians, basically saying that the killing of civilians in Israel was justified, and has now walked the statements back a little bit, but she doesn't mean it. Yeah. I'm glad these people were able to speak up, and now we can say, maybe you shouldn't work here. You're evil.
And they would say the same thing about being an American here. In many cases, they would have no problem making that connection, and they would have no problem with the students taking those viewpoints, even if it's to their own detriment, living here.
That's one of the benefits. I mean, that word is crazy to use in this context, but I'm sure people know what I mean. One of the only positive things is sort of seeing who's who and getting a lot of clarity about your own positions. We were talking about that earlier. Absolutely. It's like my anti-war position I've never felt more confident with it. But I also am more confident in who's who and who, is beating those war drums. Yeah.
It has been absolutely insane to me to watch what's been happening and realize that my positions have not changed through Ukraine, through everything in 2020, that my beliefs, especially anti-war beliefs, do not need to be swayed by either side, that it's a bad idea no matter where it's coming from.
Well, you saw Lindsey Graham, right?
Yeah.
His latest thing was where he said that he wants to bomb Iran even with no evidence.
Yep. That was crazy.
And that
was insane. That guy should resign. That dude is evil.
And you look at the responses of the people talking about this stuff, and there are people justifying it. And it's just like when we started seeing all this stuff, it really did become clear to me how the Patriot Act got passed so quickly with so much little pushback. And that's before the internet age. That's before the free exchange of information that we have now, where there at least is now reasonable pushback from all parties, where the ones who are not seeing red right now can have a reasonable discussion. Back then, that wasn't really an option. You had a couple of mainstream networks pushing the war machine on you, and it worked. It
lasted for like a year and a half too.
And that's
everyone.
Sorry,
I didn't know anybody that wasn't Bloodlust from 2001 to 2002.
Well, that would, but there's a weird, sometimes I catch myself almost like longing for sort of that era in the sense of not the war part, but the unification we all felt. But then you remember it was unification under so many false pretenses.
Based on a lie.
Right. And I don't even know how much of that is safe to even talk about here, how many false pretenses, so we won't go into it. But, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. And every war really starts with manipulation to some extent, which is why also free exchange information era, but also manipulation era, because we have AI, which we're still in the infancy stages of, and we're still having people like not able to decipher what's fake and what's real now.
And just too much information. Like you were saying earlier, they say what they say, they lie. You don't most people, you do this for work every day. We do this for work every day. You have the time to look into all of these cases, fact check, double check everything you're seeing. The average person who's just going to the internet to get information on what's going on isn't doing that. Yep. The worst is that they're taking advantage of the people who are operating in good faith, who are just looking to get information on what they're supposed to understand.
People don't understand what the world really is without our system of laws and rules and order. Mm-hmm. It's you're in the middle of the woods and you've got your family and you built a house and you're like, man, I've built up this nice little place to live and grow food. And then 3 guys who don't feel like doing any of that show up, mercilessly beat you and your family and take all your stuff and leave you for dead. And it's funny because this is my argument against vegans. Vegans, listen up. You see, here's my issue. The little spinach plant hurts nobody. Grows its own food, sources everything from the environment around it, peacefully minding its own business. And then along comes this groundhog. Groundhog comes over and just mercilessly destroys that plant, consuming everything about it. And I'm supposed to sympathize with the animal? The animal is the barbarian who came in and killed the peaceful farmer. Right. So it's like, if there's a guy farming, minding his own business, and then a bandit came and killed the farmer and took all his stuff, who would you side with?
Depends. If the farmer's father had stolen the land from the bandit's father, now we're talking. Now we have a great debate looming.
But this is actually an interesting point. If you have an innocent farmer who grew his own land, he has land, there's nobody there, it was just wild, and it's like, let's say it's 3,000 years ago and he's minding his own business, then marauders come, kill him, take all his stuff and leave. We obviously side with the farmer and say that it's awful they did this. But you take a look at how the left operates, and it really does follow this line. So it's like, it's interesting that they're like an overlap between leftists and vegans. I'm not really ragging on vegans. I know a lot of conservative vegans.
I know what you're saying though.
But like, my point is the left tends to side with the thieves, with the people who lie, cheat, and steal and strip value. They're predators. And also they're also predators in the more literal sense of what predators are. Like Joe Biden is a predator.
But a lot of it is like, in our media, we've baked the idea of the ends justifying the means for a very long time. And so for a lot of them, they feel as if their actions, however abhorrent, are justified, because a lot of times it really does come down to, is it class struggle? Is it race struggle? In this case, they're saying that what's going on, they're attacking their oppressors, therefore it is okay. And that has permeated all levels of our culture, whether it's people pushing back on police because they believe that they're being held down by the police, that carries all the way up through to global conflict.
You know, some oppressors are better than other oppressors. And if you've got to pick which one you want to be oppressed by, whether it's a banking system or a militant system, you got to pick. Like you maybe you'll end up on top of the game at some point, but I don't think so. I think there's probably about 10 humans that are doing that right now.
That's the reality. That's my point. If nobody wants to live in a true state of conflict or war, right? The people that gloat about it and laugh, you put those people in the middle of the woods for a couple of weeks and they'll be crying and begging. And I know this because I remember during Occupy Wall Street, story I often tell, the land was gifted to the occupiers. And I ask people, how long do you think the occupiers lasted on that farmland? How long do you think?
I don't know.
Bunch of leftists protesting in New York. Farmland is gifted, saying you can use this farmland to live off the grid and be sustainable.
Maybe 12 hours. Oh,
that's a little, they did a little better than that. 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks, couple weeks. And then I remember talking to a friend who said, I would wake up and work and then work till I went to sleep. And I'm like, you're surprised by this?
Yeah.
That's what life is like outside of the luxury of the United States and the petrodollar and all this stuff. Work.
And they also don't really obviously have a concept of, so you can wrap your head around, maybe the more advanced leftist brain can wrap its head around the idea that, bad things happening to other places, but the idea that, yeah, that happens and there's no justice for it in most scenarios too. So the idea that you can then seek justice for it is completely removed as well.
Who are you going to complain to?
Right.
That's why it's funny when they're like universal healthcare and healthcare is a human right. And I'm like, so who are you going to force to give you the healthcare? And then if that person is human and you've stripped them of their rights, is it really a human right?
Right.
That's like way more thinking into it than most of them give to
course.
it. Anything that involves the labor of another human being is not a human right.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. And what you said earlier about how their idea of who the oppressor is and who isn't is completely warped. You see it with their, landlord discourse.
Oh, that's
It's like, so as someone who worked their entire life to maybe buy even a rinky-dink house and then manages to rent it out to someone is somehow like worthy of being bashed for that, or not in a position of being harmed if that renter destroys the house or doesn't pay rent. It's like, what is that stealing?
These people don't understand. Like, I had a house. We moved. I rented it out, and then I sold it as soon as I could. Because I'll tell you what happens. You're like the assumption of the left, because look, they're not bright people. That's just the reality of it.
Period.
They don't understand what it means to be a landlord because they assume all landlords are slumlords. Okay, be a slumlord, fine, whatever. But you have to maintain and work for the people who live there. They are paying you. You are providing a service. That's it. Imagine owning a restaurant and being like, as the owner of the restaurant, I can sit back and do nothing. Someone comes in and says, I'm giving you money for food. And you say, get it yourself. They're going to be like, okay, I'm leaving. Give me my money back. You have a house, and then AC stops working. Yeah. You're getting a phone call. You got to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And so basically all the money you're making in rent off a single property or a couple properties is just going to the bank to pay to maintain the house. Now, that being said, if you finance a house and you have people renting it out, you are building wealth for yourself. So you're working, right? But people still choose to rent or not. And one of the biggest issues is I reject so much of the millennial, I can't afford to buy a house and things like this, because I do know it is difficult. It is difficult. But I've met way too many New York hipsters who don't want to give up their luxuries. They refuse to have to save. I'm not kidding, man. 90% of the people I worked with when I lived in Brooklyn, it's like, well, do you want to buy a house? I do. Well, here's how much you're going to need down. You can get a condo in New York. You can get a small house outside of New York and then commute in. Well, I don't want to commute in. Well, okay, like property in New York is ridiculously expensive. That I get, but that's premium real estate. So how about instead of spending $300 every weekend, you keep the $300 and then after a year, you can have a down payment. Now they don't want to do it.
And you know what? There's something so sad about that, because this is kind of something I identified very early on, because I've kind of always, even when I was a teenager, and you tend to be more socially liberal and just liberal in general when you're a teenager. By the time I was 18 or 19 was when I kind of shifted that. And I realized that's because I'm not a pessimist. There's something very pessimistic about the leftist mindset as well, because it's not just that they're demonizing the landlord and see him as an oppressor. It's because inherently they believe they could never achieve that. Yeah. And even though, granted, it's difficult to buy a house, like you said, it's partly because they believe they can never achieve that. Mm-hmm. Whereas I always believed I could achieve anything I wanted. And so that's kind of how I realized very early on, that's not the ideology for me.
Social media has also like really, really ramped that up, like doomer content that's designed to destroy your morale and hope for any type of brighter future. Like half the memes you'll end up seeing, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because do you remember Matan Evan, the guy who mentioned,
yes.
Okay, so he had a thing he went to like protests and was like, we love landlords. Yeah. And it was like, I think that might've been the greatest thing that happened in all of 2023, because the landlord discussion is one of the most ridiculous ones that's going on right now. And they've just been inundated with all of these things. It's people who are actually, the funny thing about it, they're actually talented. They're just talented at creating content that's destroying the morale of other people. True. There's this guy who does these videos where he lists existential crises and really, really bad things, but he says it with a smile on his face with really, really positive words. And that's the type of stuff that seeps into their brains. Like, I'm never going to own a home. I'm going to work until I'm 80. Like all the while there's like cheery music playing in the background. Yeah. And they're on social media all day. So they're being inundated with this content endlessly. Who wouldn't be demoralized?
And it becomes warped because you see it spread out in so many different ways, like the fat positivity movement, which is inherently a leftist movement. It's like they really will convince you that being fat, sick, and dying literally is a virtue, is positive. Like living the opposite of a positive life is positive.
Modern society, I think, has destroyed the human psyche in a lot of ways. We should be working nonstop. But the problem is For whatever reason, I never understood this. There are people who are like, I don't want to work. I want to do nothing. It's like, hold on. If your argument is you want to work on something specific and not the thing you're working on, that I get.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm a restaurant manager, but I really want to be a software engineer. So I'm taking night classes to learn how to code, and then I'm going to go and work for a firm. That I get. That's like, I'm not working where I want to be. But a lot of these people want to do nothing.
Yeah,
they're just like, I shouldn't have to work. I should be able to just lay there and consume resources from other people.
And a lot of those people who do, they actually to what you said, your mindset, you would see it as a net positive to be able to have something to work on after your day job because you're passionate about it. They find it almost as an affront to them that they would have to have a day job to then work on the thing that they want to advance in.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.